Bestselling, episode 128. We're sorry we're late, man. We're sorry, everybody.
It happens.
Anthony's having some technical challenges on getting logged in. His password didn't work, and then I think he got logged out for 10 minutes, and he's working on getting in. So we were waiting, but we decided to go ahead and get started, and we'll get Anthony joining us as soon as he's able to. So, Carson, happy Wednesday, man. Welcome.
The show must go on. Yes, Brandon, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too. Good to see you too. Well, hey, you know what, Carson? I want to jump right in. I want to make sure that we've got a lot of people sign up this week. I want to make sure that we really get into offering value for everybody. As soon as Anthony comes on, everybody we'll let Anthony introduce himself again, and we'll start with Anthony. But Carson, you're a big name in sales as well, and you're working what 15, 20-hour days
Not
carrying the
anymore. Not
salesman
anymore.
bag.
Because once you crack the code of modern B2B sales, you don't have to work all those hours.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about cracking the code. I think one of the first questions we had, and in some ways this is a very trite, overdone question, but I still think there's a lot of value in it. Is how has buyers changed? How have buyers changed, and really what does that mean for sellers?
I mean, they need us less. That's a great question. I mean, they're so armed now with data. They go so far down the path without a salesperson engaging that the way that they need us is different. I've adopted a saying that I really like leveraging with customer executives this year. And it's, really look, you can buy these solutions. And in my case, cloud or technology, you can buy them anywhere. The big differentiation is going to be the unique value, the unique relationships and resources that I can bring. And we can't take for granted the audience that we have. We've got to stand out amongst the noise. We've got to show up differently because their need for us looks different. They're also being
Mhm.
bombarded and just pelted with the pitch slaps and the messaging that's written by AI, and we've got to bring the humanity back. I mean, it's funny to me. I was having a conversation about this the other day, Brandon, because I know you and I both spend a lot of time really dissecting what does it take to get that meeting? What does it take to attract that buyer? And it's, picking up the phone can make all the difference in the world. Commenting on LinkedIn posts, because our buyers are people, and often they are also cultivating. If they're savvy, they're cultivating their own personal brand. So I made a post just this week about that, how I attracted a buyer who wouldn't give me the time of day with the old fashioned, hey, let's have a meeting because it'd be valuable to you in your role. But they did engage when I catered to what they cared about in their brand. So buyers, everything looks different from a buyer perspective. They have more intel than ever before. They can do more research than ever before. So their need for us looks different. And the things that we need to do to stand out and attract them to the table looks very different. That's how you can stand
Mhm.
out in this day and age. What are your thoughts, Brandon? I know you work with a lot of buyers that are also trying to create that relationship with their buyers. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for that, Carson. And where my focus is on prospecting,
Mm,
and I've owned companies with call centers, and I loved cold calls when they worked well, when they were efficient,
right.
right? And they're not as efficient now because, as you said, buyers they're inundated with cold outreach. We can call them pitch slaps if we want, but they're really just inundated with cold outreach. And we all know it because we all have our own phones
Yeah.
and we're all getting inundated, whether you're, a B2B buyer or not, you're getting slammed by, maybe it's just B2C messages. But they're so inundated that what we tend to do as people right now is we go stop and we just stop responding to inbound messages, especially because we don't have to,
Yeah.
right? I think one of the things that I like for people to have that aha moment with is when we were cold out, we did more cold outreach. Let's go back 10 plus years ago. and cold outreach was much more effective, it wasn't because we were so good. It's because buyers didn't have as many alternatives for getting the information they needed. That's the only reason why we were more successful back then. Now that they have all the opportunities, if they need something, they could go search for it. Right? If they think of something, they could go talk to their network on LinkedIn. They could send an email to a bunch of friends. They could text a group chat of colleagues, people, and go, "Hey, we're looking for this. Who do you know? What do you recommend?" And because our human brains are designed to help us do things the most efficient way possible, that's what most buyers do now. And they don't need to go research 30 companies. If they could get two or three names from a few people they know and trust, there's their research, and off they go. So the question for us with companies is, from a content perspective, because content is the medium, it's the catalyst. From a content perspective, what are we doing to stay top of mind, to build that brand awareness, to build a reputation so that we stay top of mind, so that when they need us, they'll go, "Oh, yeah." And let me tell a quick story because it just happened today. I was meeting with a CEO of a company, very successful guy, multiple exits, multiple companies at the same time, and you know, mid to late 40s. And he said, "I'm so hesitant with this because I'm all business all the time. But," he goes, "I know I need to do this because buyers have changed. I need people to remember who I am." And as we were talking, I said, "Well, why are we talking here? Like, what was it about me that you invited me to come and sit and have a talk with you?" And he started laughing, and it was a little bit of a risk because I like to
It was
set
a
it up.
dad joke.
No, I wish. No, he said, he goes, "Gosh, Brandon, I can't remember 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe." He's like, "I just remember this post. It was you and your daughter on a hiking trail.
Wow.
And I just, every time I think of you, I think about that picture because
Wow.
you and your daughter look like you were having so much fun." Now, he's a dad, he's got 4 kids. That connected with his heart. And
Yeah.
I said, "What was the post about?" And he goes, I don't remember. I just remember the picture of you and your daughter." That is the value of a personal brand. Now, it had nothing to do with business. Well, knowing me, the post, the written part of the post probably had something to do with business. But I used the personal picture because I want to show humanity. And I know that our humanity is our uniqueifier. That's the way other human beings will remember us, will more likely remember us than if we just go, "Oh, here's my 3-step formula." And so that was intentional for me. And whether it was 3, 4, or 5 years ago, now I'm looking at bringing on a new customer because of that. I'm sure it's lots of other things, but that type of post, that type of content stood out in his mind.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're always making deposits into kind of the well of brand. You never know what they're going to yield, and I couldn't agree more. And I think as salespeople, as leaders, as executives, we have to weigh what we can actually control. I mean, anytime the parameters change, because we just talked about how the landscape has shifted dramatically. Anytime the parameters change, it's up to us to kind of take a look at the new surroundings and figure out, okay, how do we navigate in this climate? What are the controllables? What can we control in this situation? And what I found a
Yeah.
lot of value in, especially working with customer executives, is how can I, going back to that differentiation of value, my organization, we have a lot of competitors, a lot of great competitors. You can buy these services from one of my competitors and probably be just fine. They can help you optimize costs. They probably have security baked in. But what's different is some of the very unique relationships and investments that I can make as a result. I had a meeting with an executive very recently, and one of the conversations that I had, because we were talking about different people internally that were executives that I could introduce them to, and to say, like, there were comments that were made like, "Wow, I didn't even know that these people existed or that we had access to them." And normally by default, you might not. But because I've been in this organization 11 years, I know these folks. I know what makes them tick. And a lot of the most internal selling that I do is internal, being able to align the goals of the customer with what unique value we have, being a conduit to my greater organization, and to say, I can put these folks together because at the end of the day, we want to serve your customers. My organization serves those customers in some way, shape, or form. You serve these customers. Let's join forces and figure out how do we 1 + 1 = 5 in this case, and really up level and elevate the ability to serve those constituents. And so that's where we are. I think it goes back to how we show up differently to meet these folks where they are and to get them thinking about collaboration in a way that is unique and is outside the box of anything that we've ever done. Outside the box has more of a place now, arguably, than likely ever before, because it's a differentiator. And that's why I think personal brand is even all the more important. I had a post that I made this week that was about something very similar, where there was that executive that was not taking the meeting, but there was another post. This is the post that I was referring to. There was another customer where customer wouldn't take the meeting, and I started looking into his profile and even just some of the things that he talked about that he cared about greatly. He was very proud of what he had built with his organization, the culture that they had, and the way that they served, in this case, a very specific industry. And so I started to think about, like, I'm not going to win this person over by just going in and saying the same old tried and true things that everybody else is saying about how we can offer consolidated services and help optimize your costs. No, it was, you're doing really transformational, game-changing, incredible work. I would love to help build community. And that's how I want to sum up this point. Is that, Brandon, you were talking about some of these things that we can do to really add value and stay top of mind for these customers and these executives. One of the things that we can do is build community around what they do. We can introduce them to and influence by proxy by introducing them to people that would be of immense value to them. And sometimes the best thing that I've ever done is put people together and then get the heck out of the way so that they can make the real magic happen. I've introduced industry executives, people that are very focused on certain components of industry, and they gotten out of the way, let magic happen. And they've come back and they've made purchases because they were influenced by that person that they now know and respect that's in their industry. They don't work for me or with me, but they were able to go forward on a path because I was able to put those folks together and build community and step aside.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the private chat. It looks like Anthony's joining. So hopefully we'll get that resolved here for everybody. Carson, I'm curious, I hear you. I mean, we're 128 episodes into Mastering Modern Selling.
Wow.
And I hear you say a lot, like, you bring executives together and you get out of the way. How, like that, I would think that is part of cracking the code of B2B sales. Like, one tactic is, if you can go help executives, especially those who are hard to reach, and I'm going to make some assumptions here, correct me on all the areas I'm wrong. You do some of your normal outreach, they're not responding. Then you go deeper and go, okay, what can I do? And maybe you're take a look at things on their profile, like the example you were just giving, and you learn some things. Go, wow, he's really proud about what they built. And then you look into, like, and I know they're all different, but in that case, you kind of like look into your network of people and go, who could I bring to them? Like, okay, they're at this level of this type of company. Who do I have in my network, or who do I have at a higher level in Microsoft? I mean, you've got that in your back pocket of executives at Microsoft that I could introduce to them that would bring value to them to get them to respond, and then feel like you're really taking care of them. You're not just there trying to hawk your software.
The most
Is that?
Yeah, the most important the selling that I do is internal selling. It's getting people inside to care about my customers,
Mhm.
and how can I frame that up? And that's, frankly, that's the biggest value that I can bring folks. I am not a prototypical technology or cloud seller. I'm an old advertising sales guy, but I've been able to be successful because I've used LinkedIn outreach on steroids, and I've used social selling on steroids to create so many conversations and relationships, but also figure out my unique value prop. which is I can champion your cause. I don't take for granted that you already invest with me and or you have choices. I don't take any of those things for granted. So I value your time, but I can connect the dots in a valuable way to unlock investments and bring people
Yeah.
to the fold that are going to help amplify your business. That's often the biggest value that I can bring any organization, and that's not lost on me. And I think we all have to figure out what is our unique value prop. There may be other relationships, and we've talked on this show about it. I've introduced people to my competitors before because it was the right thing to do. I've got a colleague, an ex-colleague of mine who works at the competition. He'll take great care of you. Let me make that introduction. They know that they can come to me. I've earned the right to be that trusted advisor, and that's what we've got to seek to do. If you're going to crack the code of modern B2B, you've got to do things differently than old B2B, what it used to look like when the parameters were different.
Yeah. An old B2B was pure outreach, asking for calls. And then that's why I hear a lot of, oh, our customers, they see us as trusted advisors. Like, okay, when do they start to see you as a trusted advisor? Because if it's not until you get the meeting, it's not until you're already in the boardroom, then there was something else that got you in that boardroom. And what I talk about saying is they need to perceive you as a trusted advisor. I'm talking
Yeah.
holistically. I'm talking your personal brand needs to be seen as like, wow, this guy is, a connector, or this guy knows everybody, or this guy connects people, or, whatever that, you're offering such great detailed solutions or case studies that their perception is already trusted advisor, so they therefore will reach out to you, or when you reach out they go yes because they've got that mindset about you already ahead of time.
Very well said. At the end of the day, there are very different ways that we can connect and add value. And some of my favorite stories, frankly, about connecting with executives are completely unorthodox. Commenting on their LinkedIn posts for 6 months until they got promoted to CEO, and then I took my shot and got the meeting, and everybody in that organization was shocked. Like, who in the world is this guy that somehow got a meeting with our new CEO? And he was introducing me to multiple executives in their organization. It couldn't have worked out better. Or the customer that was actually upset and reached out to me upset because there was a press release that went out, and a lot of organizations were invited to be part of this consortium. And he was like, "Why don't we ever get invited to stuff like this?" And I looked it up, and honestly, the consortium had gone defunct. It didn't go anywhere. But I leaned in. I leaned into the pain with this guy, listened, and championed his cause. He had some valid points about the value that organization would have to my organization. So I connected the dots, brought in some execs. Magic happened. 9-figure deal happened. There's so many different ways that we can be connectors and that we can add value. And I encourage people to take a step back and look at a balcony view of, what are the ways that we can actually create immense value for our potential buyer? What are the things that, we could do or say that could attract them? Go in and literally read their LinkedIn, like about me section. Look at the things that they care about. Look at the causes that they follow. These types of things can give you a lot of insight that can arm you with what you need to and what to talk about when you might be reaching out to them, when you have introductory conversations, because every conversation you're looking to earn another one. And you want to say the right things as a part of the discussion. I was in a customer conversation recently where, I'm navigating through and really helping articulate the value that I believe that I can bring. And, it doesn't sound like a needs analysis. It's championing these different stories and experiences of things that have been beneficial for customers in the past. And it looks like we've got somebody trying to enter our little interview room here.
I think it's Anthony. It should be Anthony. Oh man, do we have another hurdle to overcome?
We've got a box now. We just need video and audio.
I'm glad you specifically said both video and audio, because if you would ask for video and we didn't have audio, I would have laughed. Oh man, Anthony, I am so sorry for this challenge.
Anthony is definitely a
But
goat.
look,
He is
yeah,
recently, and I'll say this as we hopefully get Anthony in. I started working on a series. I started
yay!
working on a series talking to the sales goats, and Anthony was one of the top picks. This guy's a legend. So here we go.
Yeah, Anthony, can you hear us?
Gents, are you there?
We are here.
We are here.
Holy, uh, did I do something that hurt your feelings in some way that you decided that you was going to make me go through this restream? And I tried, I had LinkedIn left up, everything in there. I just can't get it to do anything. It's amazing.
Technology
I am so sorry.
technology can be quite a blocker sometimes.
Yeah. Are we missing people?
That's Tom's missing today, but you were missing, and now you're here.
I'm here. If you want to go, I can go.
Hey, Anthony, welcome. Let's get caught up and tell everybody a little bit about you. I have an introduction and all that, but let's just start moving. Tell us a little bit more about you, and then we're going to jump into cracking the code to B2B sales.
Well, you guys already know how to do that, but we can help a lot of people if we have that conversation, right? It's still bad out there.
Yeah. What's happening?
Still a lot of people just pitching. I got an amazing LinkedIn yesterday from a young woman who told me that she wanted some of my time so she could tell me about her solution. I don't even know what she's talking about. I have no clue. I felt really bad for her. And then she said, well, later, could I just follow up with you? And I'm like, about what? I don't even know what you do. You don't even know what I do. It's really bad out there.
Do we know if it was a real person or not?
Oh,
I
it
mean,
was a real person. Yeah.
okay. Nowadays, you don't even know who's messaging you.
Oh, no. It's amazing. I'm still doing the things that I like to do the best. I like to read. I like to write. I like to train. I like to have clients. I like selling. I like all of those things, so I do all that stuff.
And we love it when you do all those things too. You're so good at them.
And I am now a slimmer man than I was. I'm down. I lost 20 pounds so far.
Wow. I was going to say, you look like a lean, mean selling machine.
Yeah. Exercising every
Good
day.
job.
It's been good for me.
Beautiful, man. Great to
Good
see
for
you.
you.
You look great.
So Anthony, we kicked off. We titled this "Cracking the Code of Modern B2B Sales," and we know that you just said it. Most companies are still struggling. There's still just a lot of cold pitching, asking for time. How how have buyers changed, and what does that mean for sellers, and where are they lacking?
I think that depending on what industry you're looking at, especially technology, if you're looking at technology, they believe that they don't need any help making the decision. I mean, the people that are tech people, they think they know everything. Is that right, Carson? Yes, it does. Yeah, that's what they
Many
are.
of
They
them,
think
yes.
what's that?
Many of them, yes.
Yes, many of them, yes. Mostly they think they have all the information that they need, and information isn't what they need. They need insights and they need experience, and they need someone who can guide them to a certain decision that they want to make and the results that they want from making that decision. And if you have clients like I do, it's funny. I was in Orlando a couple weeks ago and I had like 200 people I was training, and it was more like a workshop because you can't train like that way. It was a workshop. They called Beth, who works for me, and said, all this stuff works. We're actually getting deals. Well, that was the idea, right? That was it. And they were mostly like, they have something, it's you put it in concrete to make sure that there's no water leaking. Not sexy at all, but it has to be done. And they're like, this all works. Like, they people that like these conversations that we're having now. Yeah, that's what happens. If you don't talk about yourself, you don't talk about your clients, you don't talk about your solutions, you put that off, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Anthony, I want to jump into the. We got feedback too on our sound. I think it's on your speaker end.
Yeah, I could do that. Let's see that better.
Let's check. Yeah. Oh no.
Let me see now.
Okay. There.
Here's what I'll do.
I still get feedback. Well,
Here's what I'll do. I'll move. Oh, you know what it is? It might be that this, you're getting this too. Let's see. Should be a little better now. Or
okay.
I can try to move it a little bit further back. Hopefully without losing.
Well, the other thing we can do is, here's a quick question, and then I'll just let you
We can all
talk.
take solace in the fact that great sellers do still have technical difficulties from time to time. It happens to us
True.
all.
It does.
There you go. Anthony, why don't you talk to us about the 4 levels of value in sales?
Okay. So a little piece of content for me that it keeps coming up. Like, when people buy my books, they always buy that book, Eat Their Lunch. And I think it's the title that gets them. And it's as presented. So they tend to like it. What I was really seeing at that particular time is that there's this, what we calling, you're coming in from the left or you're coming in from the right. So that's how we think about this. If you're coming in from the left, you're starting with that conversation that you and I and Carson would know as why us. And there's still a lot of people that love the why us conversation, but their clients don't generally like that because they were hoping that they would have a better conversation about them, about their problems, their results, and those sort of things. So we still have a lot of that that's still in this. So what I noticed is that level 1 is just, you are totally a commodity. Like, nobody needs to talk to you. They could just transact with you because you don't really have anything to say. Level 2 is not much better because all they do is add on to how good their service is. Okay, fine. 3, we would call the solution. And that era has now been dead for, I'm going to say, I'm going on 15 years, something like that. Everybody's got a good solution. You can't talk about that. Everybody's solution's good, right? And what I noticed is that in staffing, which my family business is, nobody wanted to have those conversations. So I realized at one time, I was young too, I'm probably like 18 or 19, and I realized, why don't I just tell them about the outcomes that we're going to get them and how we're going to do that? And that was the whole conversation. So I would just figure out, no, they don't want temporary staffing. And when I talked to them about temporary staffing, I would say something like, I'm going to make sure we give you the very best unreliable people we can find. And they would start laughing because they know what they're getting, right? You're not going to get people that are going to be there forever. We call them temporaries, right? And people would laugh about that, but they still needed it. But what did they want? Lower labor costs, being able to not have to have a bunch of HR people trying to hire people, being able to just take them on to their payroll when they find out that this person's good and this person's not so good. They wanted a whole bunch of things, but it wasn't temporary staffing. And so I would just start saying, most of the time when I sit down with people like you probably want 1 or 2 of these 3 or 3 things, maybe, possibly. And they would say, yep, those are the things that we want. They don't want temps. And this is the idea of the level 4. Just go right to the strategic outcome. And I promise you, I have people that I train all the time to do this, and they're a little afraid to just go right in and say, we think these are the most important outcomes based on the problem that you said. And they have no problem going just right with you because that's the conversation that they wanted in the first place. And the more that we do that, the better it is easier for people to get a deal instead of a continuation, I guess is what we would call it, right?
I love your focus on that, Anthony, because I can't tell you how often you observe other sellers going in and taking that why us. And it's almost it's so common. So I loved how you started because it's like it's still rough out there. Everybody feels compelled to throw out this laundry list of what's so great about their company or their solution, or even when we're overcoming objections or we're trying to differentiate to win an RFP, we're talking about how great our company is and like doubling down on the value and all of that jazz. And don't get me wrong, like these things are important, but solutions don't exist unless they add value. And you're not going to win going toe to toe with the strength of your competitor. You're going to go toe to toe on maybe the areas where they fall short or areas where you, as a seller and as an organization, actually differentiate and bring unique value and drive outcomes. The fact that you focus on the outcome that you can drive, the experience that you're having, the stories that you can tell, how you can navigate with confidence your ability to deliver those outcomes and how you've done it in the past, those are the things that help de-risk your buyer's decision. And that's what it's all about.
Worried about not getting it right. I keep saying it this way. What we really do is we help somebody with a decision that's rare and strategic for them, that they want to get it right on the very first try. That is why they have that angst of making this decision. And that's why if you go into I'm sure you do this all the time, Carson, because of the nature of who you work with, there's 14 people in there. Why? Because you need 14 people? No, you don't. You don't need 14 people. You could have maybe 3 people, but everybody has to be there because they're so afraid that something bad is going to happen. And that's still going on. I want to say something just about where we are. I have a younger sister. She's a year younger than I am. This last week, she signed a deal for $20 million annually. That's good, huh?
I would say
she says nothing. She says almost nothing. As a salesperson, she sits quietly. She lets them talk. Occasionally, she says something, and she goes back to being quiet. And they talk mostly to each other. If you've been in an issue with 14 people, they talk to each other more than they talk to us, right? Because they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Earlier that year, I went in last year, and I did 7.5 with her because she asked me to go with her, and I said, I'd love to do that. I haven't done that in a long time. So 2.5 hours, 12 people talking to each other, not us. And then at the end, they said, we can't see you next week, but we want you to come back and spend 2.5 hours more with us next week. And I'm like, for $7.5 million? It's not that pretty easy, right? The answer is yes. And they made 2 phone calls to us for 30 minutes and said, we're signing it. So, and it's because of the conversation. So I am trying to tell everybody, the only thing that we do in selling, I got this mostly from my kids. They said, Dad, all you do is talk. Right. Because I don't want to work with my back. I would rather work with my brain and my mouth than doing something like labor, because I did that when I was a kid. I think all we have is a conversation. And I will ask you 2 gentlemen, have you ever won a deal without a conversation? Have you ever lost one without having a conversation?
Actually, you know what? To be fair, I've had some scenarios where the revenue landed, a purchase was made, and I was able to go back and track it to something that we had put in place, like a webinar. I had a customer that made a big purchase last year, And the team and I kind of came together, and we were like, "Where'd this come from?" Nobody talked to this customer, and we looked back, but there was definitely work that needed to be done to connect with this buyer on the level where they needed to be met or wanted to be met. And I think that's the key. Before you hopped on, we were talking about how we meet today's buyer and how they want to be met. And we just so happened to have created our own homegrown webinar series. We created content that was relevant, and it was speaking to that individual at where they were in their buying cycle. It was arming them with intel. I like to say passively educating. And we looked, and they had attended every single one of these webinars that we had done. But it's very rare that I'm able to create a deal without talking to someone first.
I think the better the conversations that we give them. When I was in Orlando, I was trying to teach these people. They know a lot of stuff, but they don't believe that they know a lot of stuff, but they do. I've had people, I was asking them, how long have you been here? 17 years. How could you not know everything that you need to know in 17 years? You have to. And I said, tell me what your clients don't know that they need to know, that if you could share that with them, how would that change the relationship that you have with them? And they're like, well, we don't know what we know. I'm like, and then one guy was in the back, he said, I've done 3,000 deals where they're all still good. There's no cracks in the cement or anything, because that's what he does. And he had a whole bunch of things to say, because he said, they don't know this, they don't know this, they don't know this. And I said, if you're not taking this down, you're doing yourself a bad thing to yourself. Like, you have to get in there and do that. How do you not know every problem that every client has, because you do it every day? And I keep trying to explain this to people. If you do the same thing and you sell the same thing for so long, you know how all of the conversations are going to go. And now they think that they don't know that, but if I sat down with them, they would do that. And Carson and Brandon, like you know what you know, and you use it, but they don't think that they have the right to use those things. And I'm telling them, like, if you want to create value for somebody, it's going to be a conversation. So that's what we have to get them to know. But the things that they don't know is what is most interesting to the client. And they're looking for certainty, and they're looking for somebody to guide them through this, because that's what we've been doing for a long time. I have, anyway. At the buyer's journey, it's really not their journey. We lead them on that journey because they couldn't do it on their own. And I think that's what we're supposed to be doing. If you want to take care of people, that's how you do it. You give them your time. I wrote something down this week because of AI. You like AI?
Love it.
It's a good tool. But
I was
think in
reading
the
this book
future,
called The AI Edge. Have you heard of that book?
I heard some parts of it.
Yeah.
Here's what I would say about this. In the future, not the too far future, like pretty recent, you're going to have the decision to say, I'm going to have these bots and these agents doing this work, making these calls, doing these emails, writing all these marketing things. That's going to be happening. You will know if you are going to have a client if they sit down with you and you have a conversation with them. And I think that what we're at now is we're going to have these people, and I've already seen this starting. If they don't give you a person to sit down next to you and have that conversation and talk about that decision and how it needs to be made, what's going to need to be happening on both sides of these things. If you don't give a person, I'm going to tell you, everybody that I'm going to train is going to go wipe them up with that. If you want to do it with from a distance, I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. But I think that there's already my sister who got that deal. She has a pizza place right around from where she lives. It's like 5 minutes away. They keep sending the pizza to the one that's across totally across the city. And she went in and told them, like, every time I call, it's just AI. And I can't tell you, but I need you to send it to my house. It's like 5 minutes away. I thought that was crazy. I said, what'd you do? She said, I'm going to go find another pizza place that's going to deliver to me. And they have it it's all automated now. That's a small business. Like a small business, you want people coming in and you want to talk to them and you want to make them feel good, right? But it's not working that way. I mean, there's too much of the technology. I think
There is
that's
so much of an effort
Yeah.
right now to reduce and minimize the cost of sale. And, I think sales a lot of times is like a pendulum. We go so far in this way, and then there's this pendulum swing the opposite way. We've spent a lot for cost of sale, perhaps as an organization. We have a lot of budget to travel. After the pandemic, we spent so much on travel, and we send people to go out and win deals. And I know a lot of our competing organizations have done very similar things. And I think that's the right thing to do. I mean, it shows that you really want to earn that business when you show up big. But now there's like this pendulum swing to go the other way and to say, hey, we're tightening the belts. There's, layoffs happening in places. And it's basically like, let's minimize the cost of sale to do more around signals and automation of places of the sales cycle up front. You've got to be very careful when you do that, because your competitor could be a startup that comes in and does it better than you and actually has live bodies to talk to these folks to win them over. And those are going to be the things that really win. You said something earlier too, Anthony, that really struck me. Like, I always chuckle when I walk into a situation and I see like 14, 15 people in a conversation from a sales team. Because I'm like thinking to myself, like, how much is being paid for this call to happen or this meeting to happen? The reality is sometimes it really.
I had the same thing when I was with this company with 12 people sitting there. I'm like, these are all their senior leaders, and they're giving us 2.5 hours. How do you have time and money for this? Like, could you do it with 3?
It was over. It was over a half a week's worth of hours.
I'm going to stay with you.
Sorry, Anthony. Go ahead.
If you're going to keep talking and we're going to keep talking, I'll stay. But I feel like it's losing time, That's what it felt like for me. That was wrapped up early.
Yeah, Anthony, I have a question. You were talking earlier about what do you know that your customers don't know? And you referenced a gentleman that sold concrete and he had 3,000 installs. And he's like, well, this and this and that. How do you coach people? I know I get, that the very tactical. A lot of people on our show, they like tactical. How do you coach them? So you come up with these questions or these things that your customers don't know. How do you lead people? How do they then lead that conversation with the buyer?
I think the first thing that I would tell them to do is to say, what if you were sitting across from your client right now, what are the things that you know that they don't know? And if you've had to tell people these things because they don't really know it, because we do this daily, they buy occasionally, right? So they don't have the same experience that we have. So this is why I think experience and authority has to be part of this. I would tell people I actually have a bunch of worksheets I put them through, what they know. So I've got probably 4 or 5 pages for them to fill in. And then they feel really good that they have things that they now can go sit down with the client and talk about because they didn't think it was important enough or it wasn't going to be insightful enough. And it turns out it does. And I mean, that one I'm telling you about, the cement people, they're stunned that they can go and start teaching these clients the things that they don't know. And this is construction, like real construction. And they're finding out that it's helping them have better conversations with their clients. And I don't know any other way to say it. If you want to win a deal, you better have a really good conversation. You better create value, and you better have the right solution at the right time. And I'm not against a lot of the why us. All I think is that it's at the very end of the conversation that we have. I think it goes at the end, and then I'm going to say, I want to tell you how we're going to do this with you and how we're going to make sure it works. And then you can do the why us. But when you do it at the beginning, it's a pitch. When you do it at the end, it's a signing thing, right? If you do that. So I think it should go at the end. A lot of people like to put it at the front. I have no idea why. It doesn't make any sense there. You don't have anything to say about anything yet. You don't know enough. So I think that that's where we are. I'm still very, very worried about too much technology, too many kids that have been BDRs and SDRs, then they were never taught to really be a salesperson. I think there's a bunch of those. They're all out of work now. I'm seeing more and more of that all the time because we just didn't treat them like we wanted them to be an actual salesperson in the future. And I think that that's a bad thing that we have done for years now. Too much. I think that we're
Yeah.
that are on this side of the fence. Everybody knows that, like what you know, because you do this work and you think about it. Some people do the work, but they don't think about it. Some of us do a lot more thinking about it because it's important. And I think that those of us who know that we have a responsibility for that conversation and that client and their results, I think those are the people that are doing the best, the work that I get to see. I don't get to see it all the time. Some of the times when I show up, there's people that they've not been trained or developed well at all. It's just harder for them. It's a lot harder if they didn't do anything with the people while they've had them.
Yeah, I think we have a generation of, I'm going to air quote, salespeople because they were BDR, SDR, some sort of whatever, that they were taught the product playbook and they were taught how to push buttons, how to send emails, and how to walk somebody through a predetermined pitch deck and called that sales. And when that didn't work, they moved on to the next one and to the next one. And they've languished for a long period of time in sales and have never really learned how to sell.
Awful. It's just awful. I think that that's a responsibility of leadership and leaders. I'm going to say something about this because I'm going to start wrapping up a new offering for just sales leadership. That's it. Because I've got the Leading Growth book, and I'm going to put people through that. When I do it, they're very happy because they didn't really have any organization until I put it in there for them. And that you have to be organized. It's a hard job. It's a very hard job to do.
Yeah.
And you know why? I mean, the reason, one of the biggest reasons of being a sales leader is so challenging is because of how people react and respond to pressure. And I always like to say, like it was on the Netflix documentary, The Coach's Playbook, Doc Rivers says pressure is a privilege. And it's true because you're in a situation where you have this pressure. But if your leadership is ineffective and they're reacting and responding to pressure in a way that causes them to micromanage or to come down on people or to lose focus or to play this game of follow the bouncing ball, this week, this quarter, we're going to focus on this. Oh, wait a minute. Now we're going to go over here. Unfortunately, that's the state of a lot of sales management. And frankly, the only reason that I've ever been successful as a seller is because I've done literally everything practically the opposite of what I've seen a lot of sellers do when they've failed or been average. The reason that I've been successful as a sales leader has been because I've always tried to be the leader that I wanted or had the great leaders that I had when I was an individual contributor. How do I shine a light on how to stay focused, how to develop discipline around your schedule and what you actually need to focus on at any given moment? I try to take work off my team's plate. I make sure the flack and the BS doesn't hit them. I'll take it. I want to insulate them and I want to keep them focused, but I can be that layer. And a lot of that pressure, it doesn't bother me. It rolls off my back.
I had a great manager in Los Angeles when I was playing music, and I had hair down to my waist, and I was playing music in LA, which was quite a good time, by the way. if you were young, and I went out and I got from the vice president of operations, and she gave me an 87-page document. And she said, when you sit down with a client, you have to walk them through this thing. So now I'm like 20. I'm like 20 years old, and I got this. It's 87 pages, and I sit down across from this person, and my manager, who's a great salesperson. Like, he's a great salesperson, and he was sitting next to me. I started on page 1. Olston staffing started in 1947 because it was 1992. So you should always go back decades, right, to establish that. I'm probably about halfway through this thing, and I look at my manager, and he looks at me like, I am going to stab out your eyes if you say any more words.
It's funny. I study. I go back and I think about my career, and I've always tried to study like what works, what doesn't. You know, I pick up best practices from others and assimilate it into my arsenal. But for the most part, I just listen. I try to ask the right questions to uncover, okay, what's the facts that I need in order to align what ultimately is in my bag of goodies with what they're looking to do. And I remember vividly when I started out in the call centers being handed this script. And early out of the gates, because I was listening well and I type fast, I was in a data entry call center sales role. I mean, I was very successful right out of the gates, but I wasn't following their script to a T. And they tried to slap a performance warning on me for not reading their script. And I started reading their script, and my sales plummeted. And they took the performance warning off, and then I went back to the top spot on the charts, and the rest is history. But my point in saying that is, like, you can't, when you try to put sellers in a box, you stifle the creativity, you stifle the humanity. And don't get me wrong, you can't greenlight every salesperson ever. I mean, I had a seller once that wound up on my team. I would always get, we would draft. And because my team was number 1, I would get like the last draft pick out of the new classes. And there was this person who was very methodical and not somebody that's a prototypical salesperson. He and I collaborated and wrote a script in his voice that he could read, that he liked and was comfortable with. And the guy won Fortune 500, his first quarter on the desk. My point in saying that is, for some people, scripts and mechanisms are okay. But as leaders, we've got to think outside the box and like meet people exactly where they are, just like we have to meet customers where they are. We can't just give them a cookie cutter, and it can't just be the why us mentality. Why you've got to go in and read the script. We've got to meet people where they are.
That's a hard thing. If you were to ask my team, the number one problem that we have getting the behavioral changes that we ask them to have, and it's because the leaders don't hold them accountable for the behavioral changes. So the first thing that I have to talk about is, how are you going to support this? How do we help you support this? Because if the behavioral changes don't happen, you're going to do the same thing next year too. So you have to start doing the work that they really don't want to do, but it has to get done. And so the weak leaders cause their team to be weak salespeople. And the only way to get that done is for leaders to hold them accountable and develop them, coach them, give them training, go out with them. That's the hardest thing too. That's another thing I'm unhappy about. There's no more sales floors. There just aren't any. If I've got a couple in Columbus, and it's amazing to walk in there. All they do is talk. So the tall people will stand up first, and they'll start talking on the phone so that everybody can hear them because they want them to be heard. And then they do role plays, and they're all so good with the language because they've taken it from all the people who are really good at it, and it makes it super easy for them
Mhm.
because they've got somebody that they're listening to, and that person is successful, they're outgoing, not afraid. And then at that same sales floor, it's about, I don't know, 5 miles that way, somebody will get a phone call from a client and they'll run into a closet and shut the door.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's not going to be here long. If
One
she's
of one of
running
my
away from,
favorite memories ever in the call center was back when I led the division, and I would walk around and these people would try to flag me down, and I'd stand up and people would stop dialing. They wanted to hear me on the phone with these people when I ran the center. And this actually goes directly into Dominique's question, because the key thing is, as a leader, you got to dive in with them. And in fact, I often like to say, if you don't sit in the pain with your customers, they're not going to walk in the sun with you either. And so, like right now, we've got a lot of customers that are, they're impacted by things that are happening in the world, and they're, making changes in their organization. I tell my team, add me to every one of these conversations. Let's lean in. Let's see where we can help. Because if no better time to earn a great relationship with someone or get a conversation with somebody who may not normally talk to you than when things are ambiguous or uncertain, and they can talk to somebody who has been in these situations before, who has navigated these waters before, who can confidently step in and help. And so, to Dominique's question, how can leaders hold team accountable when they don't lead from the front? You can't. You have to be able and willing to do the things that you're asking your team to do. I would stand up and I'd be on the phone and I would close these deals down and have the whole call center staring at me while I was doing it. You know, you're also going to get better at this by doing it, by getting those at bats, by throwing yourself into these conversations, by tinkering with what could add value and litmus testing these ideas with customers. Would it be valuable if I introduce you to our, chief officer of blank? Would that be valuable? If it is, awesome. Let's do it. If it's not, let's look for other ways. And I'm not always going to be able to add value for everybody, but I will absolutely look for ways every time.
make more
That's
leaders.
good. Yeah. Hey, Anthony, I want to be sensitive. I know you had a hard time logging in today, and I apologize for that. But we told you we were going to go to 4:30. It's 4:30 Eastern, and so I want to wrap us up. But Anthony, can
To see
you
you
can you
guys again.
summarize
Go
what's
ahead.
that?
Go ahead.
Would you give a little bit of a summary? We've got sales leaders, we have CEOs, we have frontline sales producers. Could you just give kind of a summary of like, I mean, I know we've talked about it for, 40 plus minutes here. Um, but what's as a goat in the industry, as a guy that's seen a lot, you understand the challenge and pains that companies are dealing with right now. What's kind of your last summary statement, charge, either motivation, encouragement, or kick in the butt for everybody listening today?
Encouragement. I think that's the right thing to do if you have anybody on a team with you. I think that's the right thing to do. Here's what I would say. I would take as much time as you can, whether you're a CEO, a sales manager, or a salesperson, and start breaking down how their decisions are made when they go out and sit across from clients. What seems to be important to those people, what they are nervous about, all these things. All you have to do is capture it. If you capture it and you sit down and you have meetings about, okay, what part of this are you getting stuck in with this decision making? I think anything that we can do to help them is better. I have a team. I have 3 teams. Um, 2 of them are staffing. One is 85% win rate. Not bad. I have people that send me things saying we could help you get even better, and I'm like, better than 85%? Like, what am I going to do to these people? Like, they're winning $7.5 million deals like that. What are you going to do? I think that that's one of the things that we should be thinking about. The other thing is I think that we have to do better, and we have to spend more time with our clients. I think this idea We need to go faster. We need velocity. Why do you need velocity? You don't need a velocity. You need to win. It's not you went through the whole process as fast as you could. Great. Okay. Did you win? No, you lost. Just win. I mean, that's what Carson. I know you do that, right?
That's
Would
right.
you give somebody 2.5 hours for $7.5 million?
Well, yeah.
I don't think that people think this way. We're like, we have to do it fast. Why? You can go as fast as the client can go. That's it. You can't go faster than them. But that's what people try to do. I would say if you're a salesperson, uh, you're a leader too, because you're out and you're sitting with people, telling them what they need to know to get the best results from you and your company and your solutions. So that's what I would end this on. It's not just about leaders. If you're a salesperson, you are leading somebody or a lot of somebodies.
Beautifully said. I have a lot of people ask me, like, why would I take this meeting with this customer about this particular thing? And I always respond, because it's a meeting with this customer. You can always go in with the pretext of talking about what they want to talk about. But anytime you're talking to them, it gives you the opportunity to embellish on the subject and talk about other things and draw another natural path to areas that you can bring value. Relationships beget deals. I mean, it's that simple. You can't go after a deal. You have to go after the relationship first. And if a customer wants to talk to you, take the meeting, period. You never know where it's going to go. I've invested a lot of time in relationships that didn't go anywhere. But, when I look back, like, if I'd have stopped every time something didn't look like a cookie cutter deal, I would never have sold anything. The biggest deal I ever won was one that the customer wasn't even thinking about us. They were going to go with the competitor because of somebody they trusted in the industry, and they weren't even thinking about us. And I happened to get in at the right time, and I conveyed how and why we could do exactly what they wanted to do, and some key relationships that I could create for them to build community in their industry. And it worked. It took 2 years. There was a pandemic in the middle of it. We switched a lot of stuff, but it was relationships that won the day.
There was a book that came out that they said that on HBR that relationship selling is dead. Do you remember that?
I didn't read it. I didn't get the memo.
You didn't see that? That
No.
was on HBR when the Challengers came out. And I was like, so you guys have never sold before, huh? I told him that. Like,
Yeah,
it's all the relationship, right?
that's all it is.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the big challenges with most industries, but especially sales now, is there's so many people out there that have given themselves a sales coach or a sales trainer title, and they're out there with all kinds of new ideas, things like relationship selling is dead. Like, even in the challenger environment, what is it that gets you to the table in the first place?
That's
The
like Mike
relationship.
Weinberg and the social selling charlatans. It's the same thing.
Right.
Everybody's saying social selling is everything. You don't need anything but this exact template, and it's hogwash. If you can use social selling or a tool or LinkedIn or AI, that's great. But it doesn't replace sales fundamentals. It doesn't replace the value of going out and getting the conversation and creating a relationship. That's all it is. If it makes you better at those things, then it's awesome. If not, it's useless.
Shut that down with outbound. Like me, Jeb, Mike, and Mark, we just pushed back. And at that time, I was younger than I am now, maybe, I don't know, 7 years younger. And these young kids with the social were like, you guys are you're like 50. Now I'm 57. So what am I going to do about that now? Like I said, you have no idea how fast this is going to go away. It's not what you think it was. What we have is LinkedIn, though. That's still good.
Yeah, thank goodness.
I think there's still a lot of opportunity with LinkedIn. It's not oversaturated yet like some of the other channels. I think you could still go and organically build a reputation and grow a network and become known and know people And then when you're making the calls, people are going like, oh yeah, I know who you are. They're taking more calls, or they're responding to emails because of the reputation that you're able to build through these tools like LinkedIn. And like, our show I think is a great example. And Anthony, as our guest, we're going to give you a folder in a couple of days with all these links and access. But this is a piece of content that's now going to get used in YouTube. It gets used in LinkedIn. It's going to get used in Instagram. It's going to get used in blog articles. It's going to get used in LinkedIn posts. It's going to get used in LinkedIn short videos. It's going to get used in
Newsletters.
newsletters. It's going
Yeah.
to get used in emails that go out, and it's going to get used potentially even in phone call scripts, because we'll do something like tell people like, hey, we had Anthony Iannarino as a guest on our show. Here's the big takeaways from it. I'm going to send you a link to it because you may want to take a look at it. It's all about using content to do everything you just said. How do we answer their questions? How do we add value? How do we help them make better decisions?
You are willing to give me the video, I'll put it on my YouTube too. I'm trying to get everybody to let me do this. I've had some people say no, but I think
Wow.
Oh,
like
we give you everything.
you're putting me on your audience, and I feel like I should put you on my audience, so now they'll get to see your podcast. I think that's a better way to do this. I've only
Yeah.
had 2 people say no, but the rest of the people are like, "You would do that?" Of course I would.
Yeah,
That's why we
we're
love
like, please,
I know
please.
that's how it should work. Shouldn't it work?
Yeah,
Just work that way? Like
absolutely.
you brought me on, I'm going to bring you guys on. I mean, that's how it's going to work.
We love it.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, thank you so much. And once again, sorry for the technical challenges with Restream. It's a great tool, but every now and then something hiccups. Um, Anthony, for anybody listening that they
I
want to
was not
reach out to you,
harmed.
what's the best way for them to do that?
Thesalesblog.com or LinkedIn.
There
Just
you
don't
go.
pitch slap him. Don't tell him how
Don't
your
pitch slap.
solution is going to give him a better close rate.
Yeah, I would never imagine somebody having the courage to go tell Anthony that he's going to help him increase his close rate. But all right, God bless him.
85.
All right.
And then the other one, though, I have to tell you, is a very, very small number of wins. So I have to get that moving in the right direction. Young people. One guy finally got 10 good deals, like all 10, one company, but he got 10 good deals. So he's going to live another day.
There you go.
Good
That's what
Yeah.
we're all after in sales
Yep.
warriors.
Thanks for having me. I
Anthony,
appreciate
thank
it.
you again. We'll have you
Don't
back on another time for
me
sure.
on this. I was not harmed by waiting here. It wasn't a big deal. This is my loft. It's where I do all my training and our webinars. So it's comfortable here.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you, Jess.
Carson, you want to wrap us up?
Anthony, thanks so much, man. It's always such a pleasure to see you, learn from you. Thanks for sharing with us and with our audience. Thanks, everybody, for joining. And until next time, happy modern selling.